the linear models are all the same. You've got a variable cost times a variable plus a fixed cost. Every single one of them looks like that. Now, what this is not is an algebra class. I never want this to be an algebra class. So what I want to do now is, everybody, if you would, go to the page, go to the class page. Go to the class page. Turn the blank screen on. I'm going to capture the screen. Screen one. There. And we're going to do. We're going to go to our class page and then go to the exact same Excel calculator we were in for the grade problems we did on Tuesday. Crack that thing open. Crack it open. Now the thing about the Excel calculator is this sheet that we were using on Tuesday won't help now because we have to do something different now than we did then. We have to look at this cost. And there are really two components. There's the variable cost that the grade calculator does, but there's the fixed cost that it doesn't do. It doesn't do that. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to click Enable Content. Just click on over to Linear Modeling Exact. It's the next tab down here. Sometimes you'll notice when you open up Excel spreadsheets, there are little tabs at the bottom. That's a way of putting multiple sheets inside one Excel folder. Okay, so click on Linear Modeling Exact. We might or might not get to that last tab in this class. I'm not sure, I haven't decided. The approximate ones are good, but they're more of a stat class thing, so we might let that one go. So what we're going to do is we are going to model this whole situation. We're going to model these three light bulbs, and we're going to figure out something. What are we going to figure out about these three light bulbs? Thank you. We're going to figure out over time the cost of these light bulbs, and we're going to be able to visually see where the LED becomes cheaper. So let's come up here and plot title. And let's give our plot. We're going to actually graph this in this little graph to the right here. It's going to populate itself as we go. Let's give our graph a good title. What should we call it? Bob. That's a good answer. That's damn good. I'm going to paraphrase, and that's okay, and call it the cost analysis of incandescent CFL and LED bulbs.
I don't think he likes Bob very much.
And then we can put hashtag eggs, hashtag Bob. There we go. Cost I spelled analysis. There we go. There. Because a big part of this class is math, but an even bigger part is making sure you can read a graph for what the graph actually wants to tell you or is showing you. That's why I gave you that graph on the wall on Tuesday. It was a graph that was clearly made by a group that was trying to complain about congressional earnings, Congress getting paid too much. And I'm, for one, I totally love holding congressional people responsible for their actions. But that graph was doing injustice and making it look like they were actually getting paid disproportionately more than the numbers actually showed. So your graph should be as honest and hopefully as informative as it needs to be. Okay, good, thank you. Next, I like to make sure I talk about what the run and the rise. This is the grade part of the calculation. We've already discussed this, right? The run, the horizontal. What was that? Our independent variable. That word came up a couple minutes ago. That's not the independent variable, right? Isn't it hours burned? Isn't that the independent? Does that make sense? That's the, of course, we're going to come back to that. We're going to come back to that. The run, otherwise the independent variable, is going to be the hours that the bulb is burned. What's the dependent variable? That's the total cost in dollars. Yeah. And let's talk about why. Let's talk about why again. Let's talk about why. The total cost is what is output. Is what is output from our calculations. It is dependent on lots of things, but the one, exactly, Fletcher, the one thing that varies are the hours we burn. Thank you. Now, some of you might be sitting back and going, wait a minute, why couldn't it be reversed? Why couldn't the total cost be independent and the hours be dependent? And guess what? It could be. It's just that traditionally, time is a very good independent variable. Lots of things depend on time. Think about how many times you look at a time series graph in the news. I showed you it on Tuesday, right? I pulled that little congressional thing. What was the horizontal axis? 2008, 2009, 2010, it was time. It was time. Just today, I shared an unemployment graph. Somebody claimed unemployment's at the lowest it's ever been. I'm like, yes, it's been dropping for the past 10 years, and I shared a graph that showed 2008, 2009, 2010, and here's the graph falling down. So literally, time is a really, really good independent variable. Make sense? We buying this? Okay, thank you. Now comes the fun part. Now comes the visual part. We're now going to build our models, not with algebra. I got all the algebra taken care of in the graph itself. Let me kill one of these legs. A little clarity, huh? That's a little too dark. How's that? Is that okay? Okay, thank you. So let's build. I've given you room for 3 lines on this spreadsheet. Line 1, line 2, and line 3. So line 1, let's call it, which one you want to put in line 1? Which bulb? Incandescent? There we go, let's do it. Incandescent. How about line 2? CFL? Sure, that puts LED in line 3. Now all that's happening there is I'm making the lines color code and tell you what you're looking at. That's all I'm doing here. And some of this, I understand this spreadsheet is a little bit like I've already built it for you and you're plugging things into it. By the end of the class, you'll be building your own ones of these. I just like kind of like smoothing you into a little bit at a time. Okay, beautiful. Now we gotta put the variable costs in for each one of these. So let's take our time and make sure we've got them synced up right. I believe for the incandescent bulb, it was $0.006 per hour. I think for the CFL, if I do, you have the warm-ups in front of you, I think this is right. Is that correct? Did I get those variable costs correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And as you type each one and press enter, lines start appearing. Look at those lines. Why is the blue one so damn steep? Because the incandescent bulb is 6 times more to run than the LED, and it's about 4 times more to run than the CFL. Thank you, Gabriel. Way to notice that. That's beautiful. Now, this is an incomplete picture, right? This is an incomplete picture of the overall costs, because what haven't we included in our analysis yet? Fixed costs. Let's go put those in now, my friends. Let's put the 50-cent fixed cost in for the incandescent, 0.5. Let's put the $3 for the CFL and the $5 for the LED. And now the graphs kind of move around a little bit. And those of you that have taken algebra classes before might recognize what you're looking at now. Even if you haven't taken algebra classes before, you might still recognize what you're looking at. What you're looking at is a hell of a lot of points. You're looking at a graphical representation of if you burn the bulbs this many hours, it costs this much up here. So for example, if you go over to 100 hours and then you go up to the line, you can see that roughly at about 100 hours, it costs about $1.11. If I put the pointer right on top of the line, it gets pretty close. So Excel has focused in on the point 102.2. That's 102 hours and 12 seconds, I think, with 0.2 hour, 12 minutes. 102 hours and 12 minutes. It would cost about $1.11 over that time period. If you go further, it's going to cost more. If you go over to 150, it's going to cost more. It's going to cost about $1.50 at that point. This is where the linear model is. You're seeing the lines now, yeah? You're seeing that trend that Lisa said earlier. That was wonderful, thank you. Now, but according to this, unfortunately, why would you ever buy an LED? Look at the LED. Where's the LED line? What color is the LED line? Green. Why the hell would you ever buy one? Look where it is. It's the highest one. If it's the highest one, that means it's the most. So why the hell would you ever buy one, Lisa? My scale sucks right now. So here's what I want y'all to do for the next couple minutes. This is the most important part of the spreadsheet. Well, actually, the most important part is getting everything labeled right in step 3. But once you get it labeled right in step 3, you're going to mess with this little very important box down here called Run Max. Do me a favor. Only mess with that box. Don't mess with the boxes above and below it. I wish I could make them so you weren't allowed to mess. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. So only change the number in the run max box. So for example, you might change it to 500. You might change it to 500 and then press enter. And this is very, very similar to our analysis we just did in the warm-up, is it not? This is very, very similar. We can actually see our numbers. I see $3.50. I see $3.70. And I see $5.50 right there at the end. Yes, and Ange is already predicting where this is headed. So I don't want y'all to do right now. Take a few moments. I want you to mess around with that run max and come up with some pretty interesting things to look at. Yes, yes we can. What I've got is I've rewritten the spreadsheet. We're going to mention this in about 10 minutes. I've got it set up for a quiz for y'all for next week, where you actually find the ball. I want you to think though, how would that change the graph? Think about that. We're going to come back to it. Okay. Good. Cassie has asked a very, very good question. How would you factor in buying the bulb again when it burns out? Yes. Say that again. How would that change the line? I love that, Amber. What would it do? Yes.
Got down to 0 as far as time goes.
Could we not do that? Could we continue the line we have? You to send me opinions here. I love both. We're gonna come back on. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I love this. I love this. Hi. Not right now, but after class, yes. I'm such a man. Genetically, factually. Oh, anybody in Madras find an interesting number they want to want us to take a look at?
LTC comes at a better price.
Wait, Carrie, tell me what run max I should plug in.
Well, I set it at 1,000.
1,000. Let's do it. Okay, there's $1,000. So this, if you remember this one, this is the one Fletcher had us do. At 1,000, I put $1,000 in 1,000 hours. Excuse me, 1,000 hours. And what you're noticing here is that a 1,000-hour window actually does show us two very interesting points, doesn't it, Carrie?
Yep.
1,000 hours shows us two very interesting points. These, you don't have to memorize this, it's a business term. You just found our two break-even points. Let's take a look at one of them. Carrie, what's the first one that you see?
So, well, I looked at the LED first, but CFL did that cross
Right here?
545 hours approximately.
So if you look right about there where I put the little mouse pointer, if you can kind of approximate how many hours that is. I'm not after algebra. I don't want you setting equations and canceling variables and things like that. I want you to get this off the graph. So looking at that where I just placed that, let me do this. Hang on a second. We're going to do this together. I'm going to uncapture the screen, and we're going to go through this together. Okay, stop share. Oops. Stop share. I just thought of the singer Cher there when I said that. If I could turn back time. Sorry, I'm sorry I had to hear that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use this graph. Here's the graph right here, same one that's in front of y'all. Here's the intersection point right there. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use the skills we kind of used last class and approximate where that is. So if I drop that down to here, where is that about? Let me try at least drawing it straight. Hang on. There, that's a little bit better, right? Kind of tilted at the end there. Well, let's figure it out. I think 550 is a good estimate, Amber. 600. That's 400. Directly in between is 500. And that looks to be directly in between that and 600. So I think 550 is a pretty damn good estimate as to the number of hours. How about the cost? Well, you do the same thing, but go this way. What's a good estimate for that cost? I think 375 is a damn good estimate for that cost. And that's the kind of analysis I want us doing in here, is pulling those kinds of numbers from graphs. Ann, tell me what's on your mind.
I thought you were asking something different.
Oh, That's okay. What'd you think I was asking? Just out of
I
curiosity.
thought you were asking for a different blood max for.
Oh, hold that thought. We'll get to that eventually. I think we can actually get some pretty good stuff from this run backs. Because I think we can also see another break-even point, can't we? We just found the break-even point when the CFL becomes cheaper than the incandescent. But another break-even point we get on this graph is when the, yes, I agree, when the LED becomes cheaper than the incandescent. It happens right about there, and that looks to be what, maybe 900 hours-ish? If I drop that down, maybe 900 hours, maybe a little bit less. And how's the cost? Maybe 580, 590, somewhere in that neighborhood? Yes. Yes. But Ange thought I was asking something else. Because isn't there another break-even point somewhere? I think there has to be, right? How can you tell, Amber?
Because the LED becomes cheaper at some point.
How can you tell by looking at these lines that's going to happen? Oh, how dare you say that again. You know that the red and the green lines are going to intersect. They look pretty close to parallel. But Lisa said you know they're not exactly parallel. How come? Yeah, if you look at the variable cost of the slopes, the red one has a higher slope than the green one. If the red one has a greater slope than the green one, that means it's tilted up more. That means it's rising faster than the green one. That means eventually, somewhere, it's going to hit it. Now, has anybody found me a run max that shows it? Ange, did you find me a run max that shows the red and green hit? That's okay. Redmond, did you find one for me?
5,500.
Thank you. 5,500. Is that you again, Ryan?
Yep.
Thank you, my friend. Hot damn. Son of a bitch. Do you see it? It's hard to see because the damn incandescent bulb is in the way. Now, here's something you can do if you want. You can see it. You can totally tell it's happening roughly at 5,000 hours. If you need to see it better, do you see at this point, you can still see the other two break-even points. They've just been shoved way to the left at this point. They're on the left side of the curve. If you want to get a better visual of just the LED and the CFL, you can delete the information for the incandescent and Excel will stop graphing it. And then you'll get a slightly better, there's a better look of just those two lines in here. So it looks like, yeah, it looks like right about 5,000 hours. 5,000 hours, looks like they both cost about $10 to run. But what I like to think about, I'm going to put the other line back in. What I like is at 5,000 hours, the CFL bulb cost about $32. Now you got to think about that. 5,000 hours, it's impossible to know how long that actually is. Now, some of you are probably converting it, right? You're doing like 5,000 divided by 24 to figure out how many days it is. But that might not be accurate for how you use a light bulb in your house, right? I mean, how many of you turn a light bulb on and leave it on all the time, 24/7? I mean, very rarely does it do. Sometimes, maybe you do that sometimes. But most of the time, you turn light bulbs on and then turn them back off. So they might only be on, what do you think is a good estimate for the number of hours? Let's pick a light bulb in our house. Let's say our kitchen light bulb. That probably gets a lot of use, right? How many hours a day is your kitchen light bulb? 16 in your house. Lisa says 16. I'd say 15. Kelly says 4, 6. See, it varies, right? It varies. It depends on a lot of things. Hey, what's one big thing it depends on? I like that answer. How often you're home?
The time of year.
What type of home you have? If it's got more open of a plan than a... Carrie, you said something. I didn't hear you, though.
The time of year.
The time of year. I guarantee right now you use your lights less. This is kind of why daylight savings time was invented in the first place, was to cut down on energy costs. Right now, you probably use your lights less than you did 6 months ago. Because eventually, I mean, because the Bend is so high, or Central Oregon is so high latitude-wise, we end up with, I think it's 16 hours of daylight by June and July. Now that corresponds to, I think, 8 hours of daylight in the depths of winter, which is very depressing around here. But in the summertime, very rarely do you have lights on, especially if you have a lot of witness to kind of use that light well. Good. Ange, go. They are?
They're like rarely ever off.
Really? With all that light coming from the window? Stupid.
They're all
They're motionless. You would think that they have light sensor too, that if like a day like today, let me know if they're on the day. When you go over there today, let me know if they're on the day with this one. Because it's been cloudy. I mean, this whole semester up till this point has been fairly cloudy. The sun is finally starting to peek out. It's getting warm, it's getting sunny. Let me know if they're on the day when you go there. I'd love to know, because that's the kind of thing, that building was touted as an ecological masterpiece with how it was put together. And when I start hearing things like that, I start wondering, like, wait a minute, they're probably energy efficient. Well, they still shouldn't be all on the state light. Cool. I don't know anything about that. I'm sorry. I don't know. I did figure this out though. Ange brings up some very good points. A few years ago, I did some calculations. I may have told you this, I may not have. If COCC would just turn off every computer monitor on all of their campuses, they would save $50,000 a year in power costs. Turn them off when you're not using them. So I should say, like through the night, a lot of people leave their computers on all night, and the computer being on isn't a problem. It's the monitor. The monitor draws most of the power. If you just turn your monitor off at night. Like what I do when I go home is I lock my computer, I turn the monitors off, and then I go home. Come back in the next day, turn them back on, and fire back up again. The computer itself, sitting in idle, uses almost no power. It's the monitor, that screen, uses a lot of power. So that's the kind of stuff that I like doing, like questions you're asking, the energy efficiency of these things. Quite good, quite good. Now, couple things to follow up with this. I'm going to leave this graph on. Caston had a badass question. He asked, come and take, let me do this real quick. I want to delete all this and just look at the incandescent curve. I just broke it. Maybe I can't do it that way. I have to do it this way. Hang on one second, friends. There we go. I'm just going to look at the incandescent curve here in a second. Okay, now I'm going to partially answer this question, but not totally answer this question, because I've got a couple quizzes that are following these light bulb analogies up that you can choose. If you like more light bulb, if you want to look at it more, you can look at it more. If you don't like it more, you can ignore it. So I want to look at this graph real quick. Now, one of the things you have to know about these light bulbs is this represents some fiction. For example, incandescent light bulbs don't last forever. They break and need to be replaced. The average, that I've been told, the average lifespan of an incandescent bulb, whatever the hell that means, is about 1,200 hours. Now, I don't know how they got that number, but let's use it. So 1,200 hours would be about right there. So right there. Now, Fletcher and Amber were having a really cool question and answer back and forth while y'all were working on your run max calculations. And I said, what would happen right there if we wanted to change this line to indicate we now have to buy a new light bulb? So here's everybody. Here's what everybody to do. Everybody, make this line with your arm. Okay, make this line with your arm. This is the cost line for, rather than I'm looking at you, don't see many arms up. There we go. Thank you, Ryan. Madras, there we go. Beautiful, Madras. Okay, now what I want you to do is, here's the line. How is the line going to change right here at 1,200 hours? Ben, show me. Here's your line. Everybody just, Ben, I am disappointed there's only about a third of you playing my little game here. Now, 1,200 hours, what happens to the line? Okay, we've got two schools of thought in Ben. We've got two schools of thought in Ben. Madras or Reverend, I want you to pick. About half said what's going to happen is it's going to do this. And then half said what's going to happen is it's going to do this. So, Madras, what's it going to do?
It's going to do a jump.
I heard jump. Carrie, is a jump this one?
Well, it's not going to raise the entire line, though. It's just going to raise it where you have to replace it. So there's a little straight up and then back to the angle.
So what's going to happen is right here, at 1,200, is going to levitate upward. How much upward is it going to levitate? 50%, because you have to buy the new bulb. Then the line will continue. This line here is fiction. That line no longer exists, does it? The new line is going to leave that new point at the exact same slope because power costs didn't change, did they? But the hours burned it. But we're going to restart right here at 1200.
It wouldn't have been burning for 1,200 hours.
That's okay. That's okay. What I'm saying is we can do what you said, Amber, but we can also do it this way. We change the line into a series of steps. So where's it going to jump again, Amber? 1200? Can you do 24? Is that okay? 2400 right about here? Right about here, it's going to jump again and then keep going. Now, Amber's got a really, really good point. She's like, wait a minute, damn it, Sean, this is no longer one light bulb. You now have multiple light bulbs. And this is where it gets, this is why I made this a quiz and not part of class. If you want to chase this down, I took the spreadsheet and edited it so that you can chase this down using the same exact analysis but with different constraints. That makes sense, okay? Is this fair? So this allows us to control for the lifespans of the bulb. I'd like to put the PowerPoint back on for a second. Let's share. Okay, PowerPoint. We haven't had the PowerPoint open yet today. Yay us. Doing math about PowerPoints. Here's some other stuff you want to think about. Here's some other stuff that you want to think about. This is how long the bulbs last on average. CFL is about 1,200, incandescent 1,200, CFL is about 8,000, and we saw that 50,000. Claire showed me this earlier. LEDs are about 50,000. Now, I questioned some of these averages, right, Kel, because obviously some don't last that long. But generally speaking, LEDs do last longer than the other kinds of bulbs. So that's another thing in LED's favor. You're going to reckon all those run maxes that we had up today are well within the lifespan of a CFL or an LED bulb. But here's something else that's not all puppies and kittens and unicorns and rainbows. A lot of it is, but not all of it. What is that? HG, PB, NI, CU. What are those? Elements. What elements? Madras. What is HG? Or Redmond? From the nasties. It's mercury. It's one of those nasties that's liquid at room temperatures. My uncle used to play with it.
20 years ago.
You ever heard the phrase mad as a hatter? You ever heard the phrase mad as a hatter? You know where that phrase comes from? Hat makers used to use mercury to do the designs on hats, and they would go insane from being exposed to the off-gassing. Yeah, mad as a hatter. Crazy. Mercury. What's PB? Lead. What is Ni? Nickel. What is Cu? Copper. These are nasties. Why do I have these on the screen? Because these are in which kind of label? No, they're not in incandescents. They're only in CFLs and LEDs. LEDs are interesting. I don't recommend doing this, but look online. LEDs have computer chips in them. They're not actually lights. They're light-emitting diodes. There's a little computer chip in there. Well, guess what? You know how you have to recycle your cell phone when you're done with them? You can't just throw them away? That's because there's heavy metals in the computer chips inside those things, like your laptop, your cell phone, whatever else. Those CFLs have heavy metals in them too. So when you burn, say again. Those aren't incandescent, those are CFLs. Yeah, we don't have any incandescents in here. All the bulbs I'm seeing around this room are non-incandescent. They usually use CFLs in rooms like this because CFLs are more energy efficient. And we're kind of an old campus. We still have the old CFL fittings. So it would cost too much to retrofit LEDs at this point in time. You can get LED tubular bulbs, just we don't have a whole lot on this campus yet. This is an old building. So yeah, these are CFLs. So when these things burn out, CFLs and LEDs, when they burn out, when an incandescent burns out, you can throw it away. Put it in the trash. It's totally fine. It'll break down in a landfill. No harm, no foul. If a CFL or an LED breaks down in your house, bring it to me. I have a box in my garage. I collect them, and then once a year, the dump has a free hazardous waste disposal day. I put them in my little bob trailer, and I ride down the dump. And they go, hey, Sean, this is crazy Russian guy that works in there. I love him. I forget his name. I'm going to call him Ivan. But he's like, oh, Sean. I can't do a Russian accent either. So regardless, I bring me your CFLs, bring your LEDs. Just don't bring them in your backpack. Bring them in your backpack as mercury.
I don't think I have.
Look at the box. I guarantee it's on like 4-point font somewhere. Yeah, CFLs are a mess. They're full of mercury. That's the big problem with them. Now, the thing is, they're full of mercury. The amount of mercury is actually very, very trivial. As a matter of fact, just not that you have to check this out. But if you're interested, one of my students years ago actually did the math on how many CFLs you could eat before you died due to mercury poisoning. So if you're interested, this is how much my student Charles enjoyed dimensional analysis. He actually looked at CFLs and LEDs and worked out how many of them you could eat until you get toxic levels. It's hundreds of thousands, I think. Let me look. 5,600. No, it's wrong. 5,600 CFLs. Anyway, not that you have to have anything that. Don't look at that at all. I know, he's got all kinds, but there's a bunch of stuff I don't understand in there. That's skin, right? Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff I don't understand in there. But anyway, and you don't have to be interested in it. Now, what I do want to show is, this is a wonder, what is this graph showing us? Part of this class is graph reading, for sure. What is this graph showing us?
I no longer can.
Yeah.
Okay. What this is trying to get, I just found this a couple days ago. It's a New York Times article. From 2010 to 2016, the distribution of the types of light bulbs in U.S. homes. I got the link there if you want it. You notice any kind of cool, sort of linear trends happening as time goes on? People are stopping using traditional incandescents and instead using LEDs and also CFLs. And also, this little one at the end here is called a halogen incandescent. I didn't include that one in our work because there's no energy savings. A halogen incandescent uses exactly the same amount of energy as an incandescent. The difference is how much light it gives off. So in other words, if you have a 60-watt incandescent bulb, it gives off a certain amount of light. A halogen 60-watt bulb still uses 60 watts, but gives off more light. We weren't plotting more light, we were plotting cost. So I decided to ignore that if that's okay. Although they're very popular. I don't use halogen bulbs very much. I grew up, I'm old enough to remember, way back in the day, you could buy halogen floor lamps. And they were all the rage back when I was like in middle and high school and in college. People would put them in their dorm rooms. They were these tall floor lamps, 500-watt halogen bulbs, and they put them in their corners and they started catching fire because people put them too close to curtains and they generated so much heat that the curtains would catch fire. So for a while they were outlawed, and now it looks like the incandescent version of them are coming back. So just be careful, they do generate some heat. Something to think about. Okay, how are we feeling about light bulbs? We light bulbed out? It's just, it is a lie. It's something to think about though. It's something, the thing to think about is, you have choices. The choices are based on individual needs / conditions. But there is also some definite underlying stuff that's uniform to any analysis. Now this goes past just light bulbs. Guess what we're gonna do next? No, don't put that away. We're not done yet. Oh no. Oh no. We're going car shopping! We are going car shopping! We're going to buy a 2012 Ford Escape. One of my class yesterday said, why? That's a good question. Because this, well, I have no good answer to that other than the fact that it was one of the cars when I was doing my Googling around that had 2 different engine styles. I told him, that's the main reason. I picked this one because you can get a 2012 Ford Escape in either a V6 option, which is a pure gas option, or a hybrid option, which is a mashup. I did some Googling on that. So V6 simply means it's the main fuel source gasoline, and it's got 6 cylinders that make the car go forward. What is a hybrid engine? Some of the time it runs off of a battery, the other time it runs off of a gas engine. And its gas engine is actually a 4-cylinder. It's a smaller engine. But it's got a, so why does it run off a battery sometimes? Or when does it run off a battery sometimes? Let me ask that question. When does a hybrid run off of battery? Very good. When you're stopped, actually, the engine turns off altogether and the battery kind of takes over because there's no reason just sitting there idling burning gas. If you're stopped, it's a very good. I remember the first time I ever drove a Prius hybrid. I was applying for the job here about 20 years ago now, and I rented a car. I was in Delaware, so I flew out here, and they gave me a car at Portland, and they said, we're going to upgrade you to a Prius. I'm like, oh, sweet. I heard about these things. They're kind of cool. And I remember driving down Mount Hood, and the engine turned off, and I started screaming because like, the engine turned off. That meant we were going to lose brakes and lose power steering. So I'm literally screaming down Mount Hood in a snowstorm. And I hit the pulled over, like, oh God, oh God, oh God. And then I stepped on the gas, and the engine kicked back on again. I'm like, okay, sweet, there it is. And I drove away, and then I started going downhill again, and it cut off again. So I started screaming again. I was totally traumatized. And then I realized that's exactly what they're supposed to do. When you don't need the gas engine, it turns it off and it runs off the battery. And while it's not running off the gas engine and it's going downhill, what else is happening, which is really cool?
Charging the battery.
The batteries are getting charged. They have some really cool generators built in because the wheels are running. So they're generating little current through the dynamos that charge the battery. Totally badass. But badassery doesn't mean you're going to want to buy it. So here's the information I want you to play with right now. In 2012, according to Kelly's Blue Book, the V6 option costs $13,322. The hybrid is $19,560. Here is the other information you're going to find helpful. In the city, the V6 gets 23 miles per gallon. In the city, the hybrid gets 34. Which one, if you had the choice, would you buy? We have a vote for hybrid, a couple votes for hybrid. Revenue matters. What would you buy? Carrie says hybrid?
No, I said it's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question. Thank you. You've learned. I asked a lot of those. Why is it loaded?
Well, because I don't want to drive a hybrid if I'm driving the Madras to Bend every day. But if I'm driving around Bend, a hybrid would be a better option.
Aha. Notice I'm only giving you city mileage right now. Carrie just said, I don't want to drive a hybrid going from Madras to Bend every day, but if I'm just traveling around Bend, where the battery will be on more than the gas engine. But Carrie, if I may ask, just to make the question even more loaded in a way, the hybrid has a 4-cylinder gas engine, where the V6 has a 6-cylinder. So even running on gas, we're getting away from this question a little bit, but even running on gas, wouldn't the hybrid version be more fuel efficient?
Yeah, but I also want a little bit of power if I'm driving 60 miles one way.
Thank you, my friend. Okay. So let's just table that point for now. I like that. Let's table that question for now. And let me ask the question. Will these be linear models, and why or why not?
Yes.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe. Do you recognize anything from the last problem in this problem? Yes. What do you recognize? You recognize a fixed cost, don't you? Because we got some independent, dependent. Okay, here's what I want y'all to do. I want you to start in your Excel calculator and see if you can't get these two models grabbed. Because if this is true, and the hybrid actually does get better mileage, that means at some point what is going to happen with the hybrid versus the V6? It'll become cheaper to run. Even though it's more expensive in the beginning, think of it this way. The hybrid is like the LED light bulb, and the V6 is like the incandescent, right? Eventually, they should cross. Your job? Figure out where. Have at it, my friends. Get in that spreadsheet. Start playing. I'm going to wander around and help you. Guess what? You have to do some more. I was going to give you a hint, and it involves you're going to have to do something that starts with D and ends with dimensional analysis. That is correct. Keep going. That is correct. Dimensional analysis. Yes. I'm going to leave that information on the board for you. What I don't want you to worry about right now, is things like replacing any parts in these cars. Don't worry about tune-ups. One of my students asked me a great question yesterday. They said, I did some Googling and I noticed the fuel tank on the hybrid is smaller than the fuel tank on the V6. I said, hell yeah, that's great. I said, why do you think that is? And they stopped for a second. They said, oh, because it probably uses less gas. Exactly, it's a hybrid. It runs on the battery sometimes.
I thought-
Don't get that far down in the mud. Don't get that far down in the mud. I love that the students want to get down there in the mud, but you don't need to do that now. Let's start playing with the spreadsheet. Yeah, I would love to. They don't have a diesel option in 2012. Yes, and that came up earlier too. We had a 2005 diesel Jeep Liberty for years. We got it to run biodiesel on it. I love that little car until I took it. And then I started doing research into it, and it has a 50% rollover rate if you're off-road. It was so high-centered. And they fixed it. The new Jeep Liberties, which I don't think you get diesel. The Cherokee, and they got a nice Mercedes. The little CRV we have with a little tiny. Yes, they do. Diesel's becoming more popular, which is great because diesels get way better mileage. They've got way more pulling power. That was another problem with our Liberty. Our Liberty had a 10,000 pound pulling capacity, which is absurd. That's like a pickup truck.
Yeah.
And the problem was the Liberty was about as big as this table. So I remember once pulling a trailer loaded with, we're putting the floor in our house, like wood planks, about 6,000 to 7,000 pounds behind our Jeep Liberty, coming down over a mountain pass, and all of a sudden, we were getting pushed. The trailer was, and I was like, "Holy shit, what's going on?" And I realized, I'm like, just because you can pull 10,000 pounds doesn't mean you should. So I got it like downshifted in the first. I'm like, "Oh my god, if I live through this," and the mileage went right through the floor of that. It was like a mile a gallon too. So yeah, you got to be careful with diesels, but they are amazing vehicles. Half the cars in Europe are diesel because gas costs like $4 a liter there. So diesel just makes more sense. Yeah, diesels are wonderful. Everybody, wait a minute. Wait one damn minute. Wait one damn minute.
Okay.
Okay, hang on a second. I'm going to start building a spreadsheet with you. Is that okay? Okay, we're going to start building a spreadsheet. We are going to do, when does the hybrid become cheaper? Hopefully I spelled those words right. I did. Okay. Now, some of you are down in here right now. Maybe you skipped right over the rise and the run. That's okay. I'm going to put rise and run back in here. Rise and run. And I'm going to put B6, and I'm going to put hybrid, and I'm going to leave LED blank. We no longer need a third. There's only two options here. Have you figured out what any of these costs are yet for our cars?
So, Sean, question?
Yes.
So like for the variable cost, that would be like the gas that you're putting in. So if you just took our regular gas prices and divided by miles per gallon?
Well, Carrie, hold that thought. Give me like 45 seconds to answer that question. Is that okay?
Okay.
Same question in bed. Has anybody gotten fairly straightforward fixed costs yet? Hopefully, yes. It's the purchase price, right? All right. So the V6 cost, I already forgot the V6 cost. 13322. And Ange, 19 something for the hybrid? 560. Thank you. Okay, there's your two beginnings of the models right there. The hybrid's red, the V6 is blue, and clearly the hybrid's much more expensive. Two people have now asked me something, and I do believe this is important. There's something you need to know before you can go any further. I'm going to stop the camera share for a second. We're going to talk about this. Okay, let's bring my little remote. Here you are. Okay, everybody, we're going to slide this over this way. Here's the thing. We're looking at the total cost of these cars, yeah? Total cost. Now, part of that is the fixed cost. We've already got that figured out. Part of that's the fixed cost, yes? So, total cost, let's think units. Total cost is in dollars. Fixed cost is also in
dollar bills.
But we also need a variable times a variable cost, yes? Sweet Jesus, no. My hand will catch fire. Let me ask a question. What's the variable going to be?
Gas.
getting you?
Yeah,
Talk to me.
so your variable cost, I mean, if you're just looking at like gas and the fixed cost, it's gas is your variable.
Okay, so in other words, we have to get $1 in here somewhere, yes?
Yeah.
Notice how there is no mention of dollars with miles per gallon. We need to figure out a price of gas, yes? What should we use for a price of gas?
I know it's 319 in Madras.
319 in Madras. What is it in Bend? 318? What is it in Redmond?
I don't know.
What's gas cost?
It is 320.
320 fine. Redmond, what is it? What should we use? Let's pick a number right now. $3. I like $3. It's easy. We can always change it later. And I'm watching the time. I think we might make the warm up on Tuesday, not Monday, Tuesday, be when we change the price of gas and see what happens. We might be able to explain something here. So let's just assume that gas is $3. $3 of what?
Gallon.
A gallon. That sounds like a rate to me, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. $3 a gallon. If we make that be our variable cost, we now have dollars per gallon, yes? But then, what would the variable have to be in order to make this all agree? Actually, if this, hang on one second, let's just chat about this. If this is dollars per gallon, what would this have to be to make sure that only dollars gets added in? It wouldn't be miles per gallon. Because if this were miles per gallon, watch this. I'm glad you said that, Lisa. Just pretend for a minute that the variable were miles per gallon. And this were dollars per gallon.
It's gallons per gallon.
What would that unit be?
Miles per.
Miles dollars per gallons squared. Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it?
Yep.
Right, now think about this. You just said it on the Beach Boys back there. Watch this. Watch what also happens. I want to recapture the screen. This is a very, very good point. I'm going to share the screen. Back to the spreadsheet. Suppose that this was dollars per gallon, which is, we're assuming $3 a gallon, and this was miles per gallon, which is the mileage on the car, right? If I remember correctly, the V6 gets 23 miles a gallon. 23 times 3 is 69. So if I put that in for the V6, that's going to be 69, yes? The hybrid gets 34. 34 times 3, check my math, 112. Check my math on that, or 102. 102. Hold on, hang on a second. That's if we accept miles per gallon times dollars per gallon. We have to accept those numbers. But the problem with those numbers is they don't make any sense. Because if you look at that, does that make sense financially for a hybrid? No, if you get a cheaper, as a matter of fact, it's more expensive. Look at those lines; they're going away from each other.
How many miles you go?
It should be dollars per gallon.
I'm hearing two things that are beautiful right now.
Gallons per dollar, rather. Sorry.
Hang on. I'm hearing two things that are beautiful. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go back to this model that we started over here. Lisa has said, no, that's not what I was saying, Sean. You heard me wrong, and I apologize for hearing you wrong. So in other words, my eraser's down here. Hang on. This is a mess. That's not what we want. That's not what we want. Cost. Let me ask the question I asked before again, and then we're almost out of time. With the light bulbs, our variables were hours burned. What do you think our variable should be now? Miles. I heard two votes, both of which are good. One is miles driven, and one is gallons used. But which one would likely be easier for us to play with?
Gallons.
Miles driven. Actually, believe it or not, miles driven, because here's the deal. And we're out of time. We're going to make this be our rumble on Tuesday. Remember earlier when I had the stupid ass, I had miles per gallon times dollars per gallon written up here? And I said, what would happen if you multiplied those? Dollar miles per gallon squared? That's dumb. But there's one quick mathematical thing you can do to this that'll get rid of gallons. You can do this. Now think about this. You're going to remember for the next 30 seconds and you're going to forget about it until Tuesday. But if you take the miles per gallon and rewrite it as gallons per mile, then the gallons will cancel and you'll have dollars per mile. That seems like magic, but it's not. All the car companies tell you that the cars get 35 miles per gallon, MPG. What they don't write it as is 1 gallon per 34 miles. But that says the exact same thing, doesn't it? And that's going to help us on Tuesday. It's okay. It's all right, Chris. He's got the furrowed brows at. That's okay. So I'm going to send myself a note. We're using $3 a gallon for gas, and then we're going to mess with that too in the warm-up. We're going to make gas get cheaper and more expensive, and we're going to see how that interacts with our. Oh yeah, it's going to be fun actually. I can teach you how to do a relative reference too on Monday. Tuesday. Okay, that's a good place to stop, I think, for today. Yes. Yes. Look, it's on.
I
I can tell. Math has worn you down. Yes. Hi. Okay, let's answer. Let's answer. I'm gonna have an egg too. I'm gonna have an egg. We'll talk about it. Yeah, because you moved the decimal point. That's good. That's good. Let's go like 31.5 or 31.6. You know, whatever. Close enough. Yeah. Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I know, right?
I should have powered my mile and a half later.
Sean,
You did.
questions now or you'll
Yeah, please ask me. Let's go.
I'm just gonna go first. So, for the finding the length of this, you want us to just kind of like guesstimate.
Exactly.
You know?
That's a mile, right? Forget it. That red thing, is that a mile? I forget.
It's, what is it, 0.2 mile, I believe.
Okay, so I forget. I gotta read it again.
And so I think I got close to like 4.5.
Okay, so that's about a mile.
Ish.
I do 0.2 is. I don't know.
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah.
There you
I
go.
got close.
So you got a mile long.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to know.
Yes.
Did we do
You did. I wondered when you fixed it, didn't you? Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you have it right.
Oh, you did some of it.
It's the same answer.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
So this one, I googled it and it gave me in this form.
Oh, good.
It's not. What's that called?
It's called scientific notation.
Scientific notation.
But if you don't want to deal with it, you can also just move the decimal that way 10 times. So put a point, 9 zeros, and then a 3. And that's what
Okay, that's my computer.
yeah, we don't deal with scientific notation. That'll make it easier than that. Okay. Cool.
I knew it was just something that I.
Exactly. Everyone, stop. Please answer. This one here?
Yeah.
To the nearest 100, what would that be? 400. 400 gallons, right? That's the nearest 10.
Oh, okay.
There's 100. That's 400. Yeah. Doesn't that make sense? Either way. You did exactly right. It's a weird rounding. You don't usually round the nearest 100. But when you buy pond pumps at the store, they're in hundreds or 50s. So it's 400, 450, 500. So that's closest to 400. Hi, ladies. Eggs.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Carrie and Twilight, you two okay?
Yes, we're good.
We're good.
I know you guys really get questions.
Kind of. I mean, you know.
What you want to ask?
So you never know.
Okay.
I did, quiz 6.
Email I sent you that, remind me of it.
Or no, you did a comment on the grade, and you said something about, not sending you the original document.
Oh, yeah.
I
So,
have no idea what that even means.
so what you're doing is you're downloading the document,
Uh-huh,
and then you're typing your answers into it.
uh-huh.
Don't do that. Just start a blank document and put your answers on a blank document. Number them, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay,
That's it.
so I don't, okay, so, all right, so I won't do it the way I was doing it, because I was saving it to my files, and,
Right.
okay, gotcha.
Just make a blank, because the thing is, what's gonna happen is
I'll be
you're
there.
not gonna have enough space to actually do the stuff you need to do in the documents.
Gotcha,
I
okay,
mean, sometimes yes, but a lot of times no. So it's a blank document, start from there.
perfect.